So, without further ado, Nancy.
Well, thank you very much. Well, thank you, President Lucas, President-elect David. As David said, my name is Nancy Dodge. I am the past president and current Rotary Foundation chair for the eClub District 5010, Alaska International. So what I wanted to do is tell you a little bit about eClubs and then how this all kind of morphed into a collaborative process of writing a grant, getting it funded, and now being here in Panama. I am absolutely thrilled. I've never been to Panama before. Also introduce you to my husband, who's a non-Rotarian, but he is my pride and joy, and he's a videographer, and so he comes with me wherever I go on our adventures. So a little bit, thank you. So a little bit about the eClub. As David said, an eClub meets on Zoom. So 12 years ago, it was the brainchild of a Rotarian in Anchorage, Alaska, to start an eClub. So we were chartered 12 years ago. And at that time, I got into Rotary, like many of us, sort of through the back door. Actually, it was the same way that David did. I was the ambassador for Shelter Box in Alaska, the whole state. At that time, we were Alaska and the Yukon, so any of you from Canada, we were linked up with you. And actually, 20 years ago, we were also linked up with Eastern Russia. So we were, at that time, our district was the largest district in the world as far as the geographical region. So because we are so diverse, and many Alaskans, when they reach seniorhood, decide to leave because of our extreme temperatures and things going on in Alaska. So we decided that an eClub with some sort of link to Alaska would be a super way to go. And so the eClub, when it was set up, we meet only twice a month, Saturday mornings, 8 a.m. Alaska time, which when we're in Colorado is 10 a.m., when we're here, 11 a.m., and then on the East Coast in Florida, it's noon. We have members that are all over the world. We have members that are in Sweden, all over Canada. We had one in Chile, in Ecuador. They've moved on to other clubs. And we also have 2 satellite clubs, which is something that I think clubs really don't understand enough, that when you have another Rotary club that really is getting smaller in size, and they really don't want to become a regular brick and mortar the way they used to be, they can link up with another Rotary club, and then they don't have to have the board. They can have the fun. So, because what is Rotary all about? What's our motto? Service above self, right. So how do you do that when you're in an eClub, and literally we're from Singapore, Japan, all over the US, Canada, and Sweden. So how do you do that? So basically, we do what we look at are the 5 pillars of Rotary. And so you look at your club first. So how can we network with each other to support each other? Then we look at community. Well, our communities are, whether it's Kodiak, Alaska. I'm so glad to see you. I'm gonna have to tell Lindsay. So you can work in your own club area. And what we do, that's our biggest thing, is actual litter cleanup. So anybody, anywhere in the world knows that there is always litter or graffiti around. And so it doesn't matter whether I'm here in Boquete visiting or whether I'm in Nordling, Sweden visiting a Rotarian, you can go out and pick up litter. So that makes community universal. And then we look at vocational. How do we support each other in our jobs, in our vocations, things that we like to do? Then we look at globalization, which is the 4th pillar, which is why I'm here and working with David. And then we look at new generation, Yolanda, yes. So what we're finding is that, sorry, but if you look around at us, our mean age is probably definitely over 45. And in most clubs now, we're really looking at seniors that are over 65. And so we're sort of aging out. Now, I don't know if you know it, but there are 1.4 million Rotarians around the world. It stays pretty stable because we lose as many as we bring in. So what happens is we're really trying to do outreach and bring in more younger people. So that's where we really are thrilled with our Rotaract. Now during the pandemic in Alaska, we lost several of our Rotaract clubs. We're just starting up again with 2, and it's really about what is fun and what is relevant to that age group. And so one of the things that I'm enjoying about Rotary is our transition time. So any women here remember what year we were allowed to come in? 1987. Yeah, so it took 80 years of Rotary before women were allowed in. And we have now had our RI president, and a lot of the new members are women. And I'm so glad to see that there are so many women here. So what we're trying to do now is how do we remodel so that we can attract more younger people, people that are under 35. And so when I'm seeing somebody in Rotaract, I'm going, wow, what are the things that we can do? Well, projects, service. So if you look at the different areas of service, again, you can do it at a club level. You can do it in your community wherever you are. I'm just found out that there's somebody here, Tony, from Gloucestershire. Well, most of my family are English. And so that was a huge connection. Over here, I just found out somebody's from the Kodiak Club. It's one of, we were up to what, 36 clubs in Alaska? And there are only 2 that I didn't get to go to. One was in Barrow, the Tjavik is what it's called now, in Yupik, and one of the Kodiak clubs. Other than that, I managed to go all over Alaska. So to be here at your Rotary Club and find 2 people, one from England and one from back home, is really amazing to me. So obviously community moves around, and so can your projects. From what I'm listening to you, you're amazing at fundraising. And eClub has some difficulties with fundraising because, as I said, we are all over the world. So our member who lives in Sweden, he's half-time Sweden, half-time Anchorage. I don't know if you know Stefan Spinell?
No.
Okay. Well, Stefan is also, he's a pediatrician. So again, somebody that Yolanda, who's in medical school, is important in the networking process, is finding out who else is in your field, which is medicine. And so that you can hook up with them, because if you're going to do your residency in urology, it would be nice to know what other countries have programs that would be interesting to you. So the same thing, whether you're an engineer, whether you're a contractor, there's just so many things as Rotarians that we can do, and then you can put those skills into fundraising and into doing projects. And that's sort of what happened with David and me. So I knew David, as he said, from Shelterbox, and actually it wasn't under the tent. That was probably the 3rd time we talked. The first time was because when I took on Shelterbox, I had not a clue what I was doing. I thought of Rotary as, old white men. And I really didn't understand what being a Rotarian was about. And so I was told, well, go hook up with Rotary and they'll explain to you about Shelterbox. Well, I was the only one. So most of you are expats, I think, from the US, some Canada, England. So you know that Alaska is 1/5, 20%, the size of the entire United States. So when I was told, here's Shelterbox, go do something, I had not a clue. And so somebody said, there is this crazy guy that lives outside of Seattle. If you're ever down there, stop and have coffee and he'll explain it to you. And that's really the first time I met Dave. So both of us then did get into the Rotary world and realized how important service was. Well, because my family is extremely international, my family in England, although they started in Torquay, their kids emigrated to Thailand, Denmark, and Australia. So I'm in contact with all of those. My brother in 1972 decided to emigrate to Chile. And so he was on the island of Chiloé, which is 600 miles south of Santiago. And so I got to work with the Rotary Club down there in Ancud. All male club, meets in the evening, drinks a lot, smokes a lot, and it was a really fun club, but that was on Shelterbox. So I got to realize, okay, international is really important. So I know that oftentimes we say, think globally, act locally, but my locally is international. And so in Alaska, I've lived in, well, Bethel, Kotzebue, Nome, Fairbanks. Somebody here has a brother, somebody that lives in Fairbanks. So for me, that's where my community is. So when on Facebook, I think it was, I saw Dave talking about doing something about a school that immediately perked up my interest. My profession is I'm a child psychologist. For some reason, I chose to work with teenagers who were in trouble, either physically challenged, but for the most part, it was emotional disturbance, socially maladjusted. And so anything that deals with education and literacy. So I'm sure you're all familiar with our 7 areas of focus. I thought, wow, this sounds really exciting. I had written a grant a couple years ago for the club that was in Jamaica, and it was in Clarendon Parish. We have, I don't know if you know Jason Williams, he's in Anchorage, but his sister still lives in Maypen in Jamaica. So I learned how to write a grant at that time, because this is a matched district grant. So I learned how to do that a couple years ago. And so I talked to Dave and said, hey, so what do you need? What can I do to help? How can I support you? And so that's what started the collaboration. It was just, saw something on Facebook, was an area of interest, a friend that was doing an outreach. And so I said, well, we can do that. So I talked to the service committee member, or chair for my club, and said, so what do we need to do? How can we make this happen? And so I did. I worked on writing a grant. I kept in touch with Dave. I thought at some times I was thinking, he doesn't think I'm really doing this. But I kept going, I can do this. So we were, it was collaborative. I got to work with the eClub members. Unfortunately, our service chairperson passed away in February, and nobody picked up service after that. So what happened is I wrote the grant, but there was no funding angle attached to it. And as anybody here knows, funding is the key. So because I'm the chair for the Rotary Foundation of our club, I thought, well, okay, I've done fundraising before. I already have the no, so I might as well get out there and try to find a yes. And so that became my next task, because most of the members, again, were around the world, and fundraising is sort of a difficult task to do. We do online auctions, we do local kinds of activities to see whether or not we can get involvement, but nothing was forthcoming at that time. So I thought, well, I'm gonna just go hit up my friends, hopefully not always the same ones that I have over the past years. And I found somebody, actually, it was my oral surgeon. I went in for a checkup, and she does pro bono work in Guatemala and Honduras. And so I had a flyer, and I said, this is what I'm doing, this is what we're looking to do. I need to raise $2,500, and it'll be matched if it's approved, and then we can collaborate and, go down to Panama. And I said, and I will go down here to make sure that it's put into place. As a quick aside, so as the foundation chair, one of the things I learned through fundraising is is anyone here a fundraiser? Do you do it or just mostly collaboratively? Or you've done it out with other organizations? Both. Okay, so if you know the history of fundraising, most of us are old enough in the US to remember Farm Aid from the 80s. Millions of dollars were brought in from Farm Aid. 18% got to the beneficiaries. Yeah. So one of the things when we do global grants, community grants, whatever kind of grant, is to make sure we have a responsibility, we have a fiduciary responsibility to make sure that the monies get to those that we wrote the grant for. It doesn't sidetrack somewhere. So I learned this, and Carl very nicely went with me to Jamaica. Clarendon County is the second highest crime rate in the country. And so I felt that I needed at least one other person going with me to do that. And we managed to track, because it was a computer lab, so we bought computers and the printer and all the bells and whistles that go with it to set it up. So we said, I've got to follow this to make sure it does. Plus, I'm very lucky because Carl's very tech savvy, so he actually set up the computers, made sure they were all working properly, and we made sure that there was security and all those kinds of things involved. So again, when I talked to Dave, I said, look, we're really lucky, we're retired. We're very fortunate that we are both physically and financially able to travel still. And so I said, let's do it, right? And I really have to tell you, it wasn't until probably Monday when I was in Houston on the plane going, oh my gosh, we really are going to Panama. And so I'm just delighted that it all came together. So what I did find out is that, getting back to my friend, Dr. Boyson, she said, oh, I'll donate to it. And I thought, you know, she'll probably give $400 or $500. And so about 2 weeks later, I get a phone call from her office manager saying, how do you want your check for $2,500?
Nice.
Yeah. Which was perfect timing, because that was on a Friday. My Rotary meeting was the next day, and the question was, so we're not going to approve your grant unless we see the money. I said, not a problem. So actually, we raised $3,200. We only get matched to the $2,500. So the first amount came down, is in your account, and then the second amount, once it clears RI through our district, then that money will also go into your account, and probably next month. So the way the grant was written is that basically it is a renovation program. If anybody wants to write grants for Rotary, these are mini grants. It's not like the humongous big global grants. They're fairly straightforward as a template, but you have to have someone that knows grant writing because they really are into wordsmithing. And so I was writing things like, we're going to remodel a school and we're going to do this and that, and it was like, nope, you can't use the word remodeling. So renovation, I don't know how really, if you look it up in the dictionary, it's that different, but it was allowed. And so because one of our 7 areas of focus is education and literacy, it would fall under that. It also, because we're getting community support, it comes under community economics. And you also have other people who are donating to this. So it's not just the eClub in Alaska. So all in all, it was approved. And so that's sort of how this was all born. And so it really, I just want to express to everybody as a Rotarian, being from, there's someone from Pennsylvania, you know, and I'm not sure where everybody else originated from, but you have links then to Rotary clubs in different places. And so don't think you're doing this alone. There is a huge amount of support within the Rotary community. And I think that's one thing that I've learned over time. I've always been pretty independent and thought everything had to be done by myself. And so I've reached the point now where I realize all you have to do is ask, and you might get a no, so it's 50-50. And so as I was saying to Yolanda earlier, we're really at this point trying to find out how many younger people can get involved with Rotary so that we can pass on the Rotary word, what's going on. It was really funny this morning, as quick before I finish up. This morning, I do Wordle and Chordle. I don't know if anybody does word games, because I'm convinced that being over 75, you have to exercise your brain. And as you study neurology, you're going to realize developmentally we have to keep doing something. I failed miserably at learning Spanish when I would go visit my brother in Chile. So I thought, well, I got to find something else. Well, this morning, one of the words was verve, V-E-R-V-E. And I thought, wow, I haven't used that word in forever. And I thought as I was looking up the meaning of it, that is so spot on for Rotary, because it means enthusiastic and with vigor. And I'm thinking, wow, that's exactly what we need. And I think that's one reason we really have to work on bringing in more young people. So whether it's your youth exchange programs, which we have great ones in Alaska, whether it's RILA, which I think is meeting in Anchorage this year, Rotaract, Interact. I don't know if you have any Interact programs in the high schools down here, but they are our future. And so I think if there are any projects that can get them involved, that would be great. So I don't know if we have any Rotaractors or people going up tomorrow to do the painting and that kind of stuff, but I think those are the kinds of things that really will get things going. So are there any questions or anything else I can add to? No? Well, thank you again so very much.